Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the Research Grant Council, the RGC Forum. I'm Karen, the MC for today. This afternoon, we are very honored to have the chairman of RGC, Professor Timothy Tong, to host our forum. Moreover, it's our pleasure to have the Acting Secretary for Education, Dr. Jeff C., joining us today as our special guest of honor. Over the past 3 days, the RGC subject panels have completed the assessment of proposals under the General Research Fund and other funding schemes. We are pleased to have our esteemed subject panel chairs and their representatives to share the observations for this year's exercise. They will also respond to questions at the Q&A section. We hope you will find today's forum fruitful. May I invite the chairman of the RGC, may I invite Professor Timothy Tong to deliver the opening remarks. Professor Tong, please.
Acting Secretary for Education, Dr. Jeff C., distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's with great pleasure that I welcome you to the Research Grants Council Forum. We are very delighted to have this precious opportunity to meet with our researchers and scholars in person for exchange of ideas and sharing of insights to further enhance the collaborative spirit. Today, we are very honored to have Acting Secretary for Education, Dr. Jeff C., with us, and he will be doing some sharing with all of us after I finish. Let's give Dr. Jeff C. a round of applause first, okay? Welcome. The RGC is staunchly committed in supporting Hong Kong's development as an international hub for higher education by promoting high-quality and impactful research. The Council joins hands with you in advancing knowledge discovery and bringing benefits to our society. We are pleased to note that the level of research activity and the number of research projects being undertaken at universities have been showing an upward trend. This is borne out by the double-digit percentage increase in number of applications submitted under the General Research Fund this year. The General Research Fund, as many of you know, is generally known as the GRF. Notwithstanding the increase in number, it is heartening to note that the general quality of the research proposals has remained meritorious and highly competitive, which demonstrate the steadfastness of our research community. Later at this forum, there will be a panel discussion and a Q&A session at which our panel conveners and representatives will be sharing their observations during the recent assessment exercises. They took place within the last few days, so it's fresh, hot to press. Through these interactive and expert-led discussions, I'm sure we can all take home useful perspectives on trends of international research, as well as some good practices for securing funding. Last year, we celebrated a significant milestone with successful completion of the debut round of the Research Matching Grant Scheme. With government funding, as well as donations and research funds received from private corporations, charity foundations, trusts, etc., it is gratifying that the scheme has channeled close to $9 billion, Hong Kong dollars, to the local higher education sector in supporting its research activities, leading to many valuable research outputs. Some have even been commercialized or granted patents. There has also been closer connection between the industry and community with our universities and institutions. Building on this success and with the support of the government, the RGC launched a new round of research matching grants scheme just last month. With the multiplier effect, it is expected that over $4 billion, Hong Kong dollars again, of research funding will be channeled to the local higher education sector in the coming 4 years, enabling institutions to continue to diversify funding sources, promoting more community collaboration, as well as serving as impetus to driving even more worthwhile research efforts with societal impact across different fields. To consolidate our position, funding aside, it is equally important, if not more, that we expand and enrich our human capital. The RGC attaches much importance in nurturing our younger generation researchers. At the postgraduate level, the number of award places of the Hong Kong PhD Fellowship Scheme is now increased from previously 300 just a couple years ago to 400 in the coming year. For postdocs, a new RGC Junior Research Fellowship Scheme has been introduced for next year's, and it will provide even stronger support than the previous scheme. To support young researchers, we will continue to provide the Early Career Scheme with annual funding of $140 million to enable them to establish their research programs early in their careers. To further empower young scholars, also starting next year, the Young Collaborative Research Grant Scheme will be regularized with an annual funding of $50 million. The institutional quota of this track has been removed to encourage more participation. And beyond building a talent pool, the RGC will be stepping up our efforts in promoting international collaboration. Currently, 7 joint research schemes have been established by RGC with overseas and mainland counterparts to offer research grants, travel grants, and conference grants. In this vein, the RGC is going to discuss at a meeting later this week, actually on Saturday, a proposal to set up a joint research funding scheme with Germany to promote research collaboration between scholars from the two places. We are also contemplating on establishing a new fellowship in the coming academic year to support mid-career faculty members in research-related professional development overseas. With these enhanced initiatives, the RGC seeks to help widen the international perspective and deepen the exposure of the Hong Kong research community to trends elsewhere, and to help raise the global visibility of the Hong Kong universities as a whole. And before I close, the RGC would like to extend our sincere appreciation to EDU Hong Kong for graciously hosting this event. May I invite you to join me in giving a round of applause to our colleagues from EDU Hong Kong. Thank you. RGC is deeply encouraged by the research achievements by our local universities over the past years. These remarkable advancements are a direct result of all of your dedication. So, would you join me in giving yourself a big round of applause too? Thank you. I shall stop here, and now may I pass the stage to our honored guest, the Acting Secretary for Education, Dr. Jeff Z. Please.
Thank you, Professor Tong. Please be seated. Now, may I invite our special guest of honor, the Acting Secretary for Education, Dr. Jeff Z, to say a few words. Dr. Z, please.
RGC Chairman, Professor Timothy Tong, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my pleasure to join you all today at the RGC Forum this afternoon, an event that showcases our unwavering support for research excellence by the Hong Kong academia, underpinning Hong Kong's position as a vibrant international higher education hub. The government attaches great importance in investing in education and formulating strategies and initiatives to establish a comprehensive R&D policy framework to ensure Hong Kong is technologically and economically equipped for future challenges. We firmly support funding research projects and research activities across the 8 UGC-funded universities, as well as the self-financing degree sector. We strongly believe that our institutions house exceptional students and professors who are capable of conducting world-class research. By enhancing support for researchers and cultivating a research-centric environment, we aim to bolster the research sector, elevating Hong Kong's long-term competitiveness and upholding our research status as a world city and international hub for higher education. According to the Hong Kong Innovation Activities Statistics 2023 conducted by the Census and Statistics Department, the total expenditure on R&D of Hong Kong amounted to 33 billion Hong Kong dollars, representing an increase of 10% when compared to 2023. With expenditure on R&D activities in the higher education sector amounting for 56%. Additionally, the number of R&D personnel exceeded 43,400 in 2023, with approximately 28,400 personnel originating from the higher education sector. The government is also sparing no efforts in supporting our higher education and academic research, aiming not only to maintain but to strengthen our talent pool. This endeavor is crucial to help us seize the significant opportunities emerging from the rapid development of our nation under the National 14th Five-Year Plan, and particularly within the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area. As part of this initiative to develop Hong Kong into an international higher education hub, we aspire to create an environment that fosters innovation and cultivates excellence through the internationalization and diversification of our higher education sector. Our goal is to attract outstanding individuals from around the globe, enhancing Hong Kong's competitiveness and facilitating the long-term development of Hong Kong, the GBA, and the nation as a whole. Hong Kong is a metropolis with a good blend of Eastern and Western culture. We attract a rich repertoire of top scholars with vast international experience, and indeed some 70 of them come from outside Hong Kong. Our high degree of internationalism has not only provided a solid foundation for our academic excellence, but also elevates Hong Kong's status as a global center for education. We are also internationally renowned for our academic excellence and our home for some of the top institutions in higher education in the world. We have 5 universities in the top 100 in the world, 6 within Asia's top 50, and 4 as the topmost international universities globally. According to the QS World University Rankings, 6 courses offered by our local universities spanning dentistry, education, nursing, linguistics, and geography were ranked in the top 10 in their respective global league tables, which is a testament to the high caliber of education and research our city offers. By fostering a conducive environment for learning, innovation, and cultural exchange, we aspire to position ourselves as a premier destination for top scholars and top students from around the globe. Nurturing talents in the knowledge-based era involves more than just equipping our students for present-day employment. It also entails empowering them to emerge as innovators capable of unlocking boundless opportunities. Therefore, quality research and teaching stand as pivotal components of a strong education system that constitutes to the international dialogue on education. With the backing of the RGC, numerous research initiatives are in process, aiming to nurturing research capabilities, fostering a conducive research atmosphere, and delving into uncharted realms of knowledge. The RGC has all along set up various schemes to support individuals and institutions. For instance, the Research Fellow Scheme aims to facilitate academics to dedicate their careers to research and development, as well as to provide them with the time and resources to nurture and train the next generation of local research talents for Hong Kong. The Areas of Excellence scheme aims to support the UGC-funded universities in enhancing Hong Kong's existing research streams and transforming them into areas of excellence. Additionally, the Institutional Development Scheme Research Infrastructure Grants aims to build up the research capabilities of our local self-financing degree awarding institutions in their strategic focus areas. Furthermore, to attract more exceptional students for studying and conducting research in Hong Kong, as Professor Tong just mentioned, the quota for our Hong Kong PhD fellowship scheme will gradually increase to 400 places in the 2025-26 academic year. In addition, the number of publicly funded research postgraduate places have been gradually increased from 5,595 in the 2022-23 academic year to 7,200 places in the 2024-25 academic year. Together with the gradual uplifts of the over-enrollment ceiling from 70 in the 2021-22 academic year to 100%, institutions could flexibly enroll up to 14,400 RPG students, which is an increase of more than half to constantly expand research talents for Hong Kong. With our pool of outstanding research talents and highly developed higher education sector, Hong Kong is poised to become a premier hub for unleashing our research strengths, facilitating knowledge transfer, and translating R&D research results into practical applications. Research endeavors extend beyond universities. They are intricately intertwined with our daily lives. We encourage universities to fulfill their institutional social responsibilities by sharing the research knowledge with the society, generating socio-economic benefits and impacting the community. This engagement also serves to foster public appreciation for the invaluable contributions of our higher education sector to society at large. We will continue to implement various policy measures to create favorable conditions for Hong Kong's frontline researchers with the goal of realizing the vision of establishing Hong Kong as a global international education hub for higher education. May I conclude by wishing this forum a resounding success. Thank you very much.
Professor Chen will now share his observation for the biology and medicine panel. Professor Chen, please.
Well, thank you. My name is Meng Chen. I'm from University of California at Riverside. So this is my 6th year and the final year on the committee. So I'm going to retire after this meeting. That's probably why I was being chosen as the lucky one to speak here today. I wanted to use the opportunity to thank RGC for the opportunity to serve. And as somebody who was born in Beijing and raised in the mainland, it's a great honor to come back to serve, and I really treasure this opportunity. I want to quickly share 2 observations, and then I really want to use the majority of the time to share a secret about how to win a grant from the AM panel. So the 2 observations are, so over the years, we see a steady increase in the quality of research grant. As a reader of your grant, what drives me to spend 2 weeks of April to read over 30 grants every year in the past 6 years is the exciting science you have been doing. So I do, I think the researchers here, especially the ones that are in the bio and the medicine field, do deserve a round of applause. And what have been struck me the most is also the young talent has been recruited in this area, and along with the cutting edge science in the past few years. And I'm happy to report in this year's funding, the grants from the early career faculty members receive a higher success rate than the regular grants. And this has always been what the committee members want, and congratulations to the early career scientists. And now the secret. So how to win a grant, how to increase your chance to win a grant from the panel. So the key of writing a successful grant to any panel is to recognize the audience, who you are writing your grant to. And the AM panel is very special. The AM panel is quite different from the NIH study sessions in the US. And this is because the biology and the medicine panel covers every corner, every topics in biology, right? So you have proposals on cancer biology, on clinical trials, all the way to photosynthesis in plants. So each member represents expertise of a particular area. However, your grant will be reviewed by 2 members. So the first member will likely be an expert that knows your field, but the second one will know the general biology, but probably know little about your directly related field. So my advice is the winning strategy is that you write your grant towards the second reviewer, right? So how to do that? So before you actually going into the nitty-gritty details, you really need to answer 2 whys. The first why is why this project. So you have to convince the second reviewer why your project is important, what is the significance of your project in the context of current knowledge, and what's the impact of your project after completion to your field, to other fields in large, and also to the society. That's the first why. The second why is why you. So you have to articulate why you are the only one on this planet, and during this round of human civilization, who is the most suitable for this project. And this is actually quite easy, because for a lot of the project, you are the ones made the discovery, you are the ones actually reveal the new questions, but you have to convey that message to the second reviewer. If you can do both of those two things, I bet after I leave, you're going to win many, many grants from this panel. So I just want to end here by wishing all of the people in the biofield continuing success in your research and winning more grants from the M panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Chen. We will now invite Professor Nancy Wong, panel chair of the Business Studies panel, to share her insights. Professor Wong, please.
Thank you, Chairman Tong, and thank you, Secretary for and the RGC Council and the Education University for inviting us here. I am really honored to be here again the second time, and in terms of, I think, my experience, I think thus far, I served on the business panel as a panel member for 6 years prior to becoming the panel chair. And what has been amazing was that during my absence from stepping down as a panel member to becoming the chair last year, it was only an intervening about 2-3 years. And I was astounded by the growth of the number of proposals that the business panel has received. It basically went from about 400 something to 650 this year. And I'm also gratified to learn this year that our budget for both the GRF and the ECS has been increased. So thank you very much, because we are really overjoyed to be able to actually fund more proposals, which are, many of them are really deserving. And we really work very hard, I think, with the panel to actually, hopefully, I guess the objective is to actually fund as many projects as we can, simply because there are so many good quality proposals, and it is really challenging to actually, it feels really bad if we are not able to fund so many of them. And sometimes, I guess, we are almost forced to actually make a choice. However, it doesn't mean that these proposals are not good. And I think, it really comes down to sometimes it's a very fine line of difference. And we hope that we can give them as much, I think, comments and feedback as we could. And we really want to encourage people to resubmit their proposal, even if it wasn't funded the first year. Because chances are, I guess we treat this as a revise and resubmit kind of thing within a journal system, because the hope is that if you actually receive the feedback and the comments, you can actually improve on it. And the chances of getting this proposal funded the following year would actually likely to be better. So that is the one important lesson that we wanted to hopefully, communicate to everyone about this. And another tip is, one of the things that we have observed, because I think business proposals tend to be much more what I would call market-oriented. So we are very sensitive to what is trendy, what is the hot topic. And I must say, in the past year and this year, we are suffering from, I think, AI and ESG fatigue. And I think, oftentimes, I think PIs and researchers are tempted to use these popular trends in order to actually market or hoping that this might give them a competitive edge. However, I think our advice is that use these terms if it actually does contribute to the value of your research. You need to actually make sure that it draws a real connection to the investigative questions that you're studying. Because just slapping on the trendy labels is not going to help advance your course, I think, in this regard. So we actually would hope that, people would refrain from using those trendy terms if it really doesn't add value to the research questions that you are investigating. And I think a third observation that I think we have struggled with is the fact that I guess unlike maybe the M panels or engineering panels, I think the business research generally does not require a lot of equipment costs and other kind of form of data collection. So oftentimes, the bulk of the budget goes down to research assistants, senior research assistants, and our research postgraduate students. So I guess a lot of the times, because they vary in terms of the cost and the duration that people are asking for, and I think sometimes it's hard for us to figure out, do you actually really need so much support from that standpoint? I guess what we often try to do is reduce the funding for that category if you don't have a good justification or explanation for why you need the support. I think the idea is not because we want to penalize the researchers, but the thing is we don't want to deprive other good proposals from being funded because we have reached the limit of our funding level. So the motivation for some of your proposals getting cut a little bit mainly is because we are hoping to be able to fund more projects and improve, the number of proposals being funded. And this is the first time I think I've heard about how the review process works in other panels, and I realized that maybe I need to explain a little, because the business panel reviews things somewhat differently, in the sense that we have, I think, about 8 areas of studies within the business panel. So we range from management to strategy to international business to operations research to accounting and finance and human resource management and tourism and marketing. So, and each of these fields actually have very different area expertise. And again, we pick 2 readers for this. I think, unfortunately, I can't really pick a generalist and a specialist for each proposal. So what we need to do, the 2 readers usually have to come from the same areas. And the reader 1 would be responsible for identifying the external reviewers, and reader 2 would help support and to actually discuss the proposals with reader 1, and also integrating the feedback from the external reviewers. So that is kind of the process that the business panel goes through. And what I have experienced in this particular last round of review is we have perhaps many more, I think, research proposals stemming from one research area than we have enough panelists to cover all the, I think, proposals, such that I was forced to actually sort of assign some economists to actually review maybe an operations research proposal. They are somewhat related, but not entirely. So I think there are times, I think, people are forced to be reviewing these proposals that are not directly within their area. So that has been the difficulty for us. And so one of the, I was forced with the position that I either have to assign a bigger workload to the readers because I only have 2 panel experts in operations, and I have way more proposals than I actually have experts to review that. And they very actually generously say that, please assign us more proposals if you need to, but I think you need the people who are actually in this area. Or I need to appoint more panel members, in order to be able to handle the volume of these proposals. So Again, we went from 400 something to 650, and then the panel numbers have increased a few over the years, but not quite sufficient to compensate for the increase in the volume. So that's kind of the challenge that we're faced with this time. So, but I'm sure, we could figure out a way to improve this process in the future. And so I think that's kind of, all that I have to share. And then, I'll be happy for any Q&A afterwards. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Wong. Please be seated. Now, may I invite Professor Wei Ding, Senior Member of the Engineering Panel, to share her observations. Professor Ding, please.
So good afternoon, distinguished colleagues and members of RGC. So I'm here to present a summary of our observations from the engineering panels this year. My remarks will focus on the three key areas. The first one is the quality of research proposals and the research impact. And the second is the key factors distinguishing high and low scoring proposals. And the third is about the global trends in the engineering-related research. So I would like to thank the sub-panel chairs, Professor Yuan Yang, and Professor Zhang Latin, and Professor Rani Bahar, for sharing their insights. And also I would like to thank UGC Executive Officer Zhang K.K. Xie for providing the panel statistics. So firstly, the quality of research proposals and the research impact. So same as the other panels, we have observed a steady and notable improvement in the quality of research proposals across the engineering sub-panels. So this reflects more thoughtful research design, clearly stated objectives, and greater attention to the societal impact. So this year, we faced intensified competition due to the higher number of strong submissions, particularly for the early career researchers. So the bar of ECS has been raised a lot. So still, panels ensure that all the ECS proposals rated 4.5 or higher get funded. So this is a recognition for how vital those grants are to supporting tenure-track faculty members. And we have also noted an increasing emphasis on the articulation of research impact. That is how the work will influence practice, inform policy, also real-world problems. So the proposal that made these connections clear were more likely to highly rated. So secondly, the key factors for the high-scoring proposals versus low-scoring proposals from our discussions. So there are several must-do practices emerged. The first one is you should define a clear, compelling research problem with potential impact. So that means you should always define a big idea. So this is very important. High risk, high return. Second is you have to maintain a good balance between theoretical modeling and experimental validation. And the third is you have to write clearly to provide background context for reviewers who may not be experts in your field. So here you may have the concern is why my proposals are not reviewed only by experts? Why it's unfair for my proposal reviewed by the somewhat knowledgeable in my field? So my argument for that is it actually totally makes sense for your proposal reviewed by both experts and somewhat experts in the field. Why? Because the experts will provide their, of course, in-depth evaluation. But sometimes those experts, they're in this field for so long time, so they may be biased. They may have the implicit bias, and then they may reject out-of-box innovative ideas. Then for the experts outside the field, they're actually more open. They're more open-minded. And also, a good proposal should be able to convince both people in the field and people outside the field. So that is why when you write your proposal, you really have to make this in mind. And another observation we have observed, especially in the engineering panel E2 and E3. So E2 and E3 are in computer science, electronic engineering panels. So we often talk about the robust evaluation metrics. So that means the reviewers look closely at how success will be measured. So you propose something, and because in the proposal you can say everything you want to do, right? However, how are you going to provide substantial evaluations for your proposed research? This is actually quite important. And also another thing the panel really going to check out is about whether you have plans for student involvement and you describe a well-integrated research team or network. Because you're not only a researcher, you're also an educator. So we're looking for a comprehensive, full-rounded scholar. So for the ECS, the young applicants, we strongly encourage seeking mentorship and internal feedback during the proposal development stage. So it's very important you get the honest feedback from the mentors, from the other senior members. So of course, on the not-to-do side, I'm really going to echo what has been said by the other panel chairs. And also another thing I want to do is, we often see the proposal try to use the jungle, especially AI now, like AI deep learning, everywhere. So this is actually not good, okay? So you should really focus on the methods that really gonna help your project. And also, you shouldn't make assumptions about the reviewer familiarity about your proposal. So that means the clarity and then the way you can tell the story in a clear way is really matter. Because if as Meng mentioned, he spent 2 weeks review 30 proposals. Think about the workload. So that means it's actually quite important for you to write your proposal clearly. So you have to imagine the reviewers actually under such a pressure to finish the 30, 40 proposals within 2 weeks, and if you don't write your proposal in a clear way, it's really going to upset the reviewers. That you may not get the scores you deserve. And then don't neglect the evaluation plan. So the value assessment strategies definitely will weaken the proposals. It's also quite important for you to stay connected to the broad impacts. Narrow, isolated projects, no matter how great the idea is, tend to be less compelling because the panel cannot see why we should fund this proposal, given limited resources. And thirdly, regarding the global trends and latest development in the engineering research, so globally, we see increasing value placed on cross-disciplinary integration. So this is very important. So proposals that demonstrate international awareness and collaboration tend to stand out. So you should not just only focus on Hong Kong. Of course, this is very important, but you have to show your global connection. You have to show your methodology can be transferred to other scenarios. And also, there is a growing emphasis on the open science, data sharing, and the responsible innovation. You have to keep this in mind is we're all in the same sandbox, okay? So this actually, I'm using the quote from my next panel chair. So we're here to promote each other, to help each other. So that is why open science, data sharing, and responsible innovation are so important. And then another thing is, this is the thing we actually observe for the ECS proposals, for the young investigators. So the proposals often frame research within long-term career development. So this dual focus, project plus professional growth might offer insights for strengthening ECS proposals in Hong Kong. So then again, thank you for your attention. So we look forward to further support excellence and fairness in Hong Kong's research ecosystem in engineering. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Ding. Please be seated. We will now invite Professor Gigi Luke, panel chair of the Humanities and Social Science panel, to share her insights. Professor Luke, please.
Good afternoon. Spoiler alert, you will hear about AI today, even from me, from the HSS panel. I'm the HSS panel chair, And each panel is very different from other panels because under the H panel, we have 4 subpanels. We have a panel on psychology and linguistics, H1. We have the general social science panel, which include everything from law to, now I can't even remember what are the topics, law, geography, and all the different systems that you have to work with as a human being. H3 is the humanities panel, and H4 is education, which I'm also the subpanel chair. And so what do people in the H panel focus on? Our target, of course, is humans and the systems that they are in, such as the social system, the legal system, the geo system, and the political system that they are in. And when you work with humans, one thing you will realize is that we have larger uncertainty. We have to make prediction, and we have to observe behaviors and turn them into measurable metrics in order to observe evidence and to extract signal from noise. And today, instead of giving you point forms, I'm going to give you a narrative because I'm the representative of the HSS panel. Here, I want to distinguish and point out the fact that what we always hear that there's a distinction between hard and soft science, I want to convince you in 8 minutes that is non-existent. So the hard and soft science, the binary categorization, and create a stereotype of the resource needed to be successful in academia. And this line has blurred very much in the last few years. And so, okay, with the framework of a hard-soft science, I'm also going to tell you the quality of the proposal overall. In this case, in the H panel this year, we also received a lot more proposals, and the budgets of these proposals are also much larger. We did have a slight increase in terms of our budget, but the increase in the budget is not catching up with the increase of number of proposals and the size of the budgets. Okay? So we had a very hard job this year. And so with larger teams and larger budgets and bigger ideas, what are we supposed to do? And if we look at the overall quality of the proposals, my personal observation is that they are less theoretically driven. We don't go back to the theory anymore because we're working with something that hasn't been studied before, which you will, of course, hear about it and see it right here. And so with these large budgets, we have less theory-driven idea, and the positive thing that I observe is people become less critical, because when we're theory-driven, a lot of the times is that we see, maybe less so in the humanities, but more so in the social science, they always find some fault in the previous research, and then they say, I'm going to correct this. This is the right way to do things. Or they observe there's research gaps. But when the gap is so large, when you study a new topic, then you're being innovative. So that's what I observed. The good thing is people become less critical of the previous research, which is a good thing. I think everybody should work together and be in the same sandbox. So I'm the person who gave the sandbox reference. And then what I also wanted to raise in my observations is the pathway to impact statement. Okay? Pathway to impact statement is really interesting because we see everything from changing policy to world peace. It's a joke. You're supposed to laugh. And so GRF is an interesting scheme because in GRF, unlike your career in academia, running a marathon, GRF is a sprint. When you sprint, you cannot run the entire track. So what you have to do is to be focused. And this applies to your methodology and also the pathway to impact statement. Okay? You don't have to save the world with one GRF. So what are the tips for success? For tips of success, my basic suggestion here is to justify your budgets. And when I say justify your budget or justification, it does not mean to list that as an item. You cannot just list it and trust that we will know exactly why you need those resources. You have to explain why you need it And that explanation also have to align with your Gantt chart and also align with your research questions and the need for that manpower. And the second thing is to clarify your operational constructs, labels, and terminology. In social science and humanities, we use a lot of big words. They represent abstract constructs. And sometimes it's not very clear what exactly we're talking about. Many, many years ago, apple used to refer to a fruit. Nowadays, apple refers to something different. And so you have to lay it out for your audience, which you've already heard from previous panel chairs and representatives. And the third thing is, when you're conceiving your project plans, you may hire RA, or you may hire PDF, postdoctoral fellow, or senior research fellow, or postgraduate students. And when you justify hiring these people, and do not let these people just do the PI's job. You're not hiring them as PI. Remember, we're in academia because we love research. So keep some of the research for yourself as PI and do it, and not hire people to do everything for you. And so finally, research trends. You know what I'm going to say. I told you already. AI and humans. And I want to make a plea to the HSS researchers. Focus on the humans. The development of AI depends on us. If you don't understand humans, if you don't understand the culture and the system that we're in, you cannot build AI that is for human. You can only build AI that simulates humans. And focus on AI as a tool, not as the research unit. You can work with other people, but maintain your identity as a humanities researcher and social scientist. So if we don't differentiate the hard and soft science, what can we do? I advocate for using the term strong science. There is no differentiation between hard and soft science because soft science is no less important than hard science in our society. And so where do we go from here? I encourage everybody to do more listening and do more learning and communication when you work with other people, perhaps people who are actually working with AI, perhaps people who are using AI. Learn more before you write an impactful proposal for the HSS panel and get the money to understand humans. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Liu. Please be seated. Finally, may I invite Professor David Carey, Senior Member of the Physical Science Panel, to share his observations. Professor Carey, please.
Thank you very much. Professor Tong, Acting Secretary, Dr. Z, it is a great pleasure for me to present some of the feedback and observations made by the P panel, Physical Sciences panel, at this year's recent meeting. My name is David Carey from the University of Surrey in the UK, and I'm representing the Physical Sciences panel. Before I get into sort of detailed feedback, I really want to start off with a very positive message. And that positive message is that the P panel members and also our reviewers were really very excited and delighted by the high-quality science and proposals that we had to review and had to read. And it was really evident to us that the research that was being undertaken is internationally leading, not just following the research, but actually setting the international agenda. And that, I think, is a tremendous credit to the researchers in the Hong Kong area. Panel members and reviewers overwhelmingly positive about the vision that many proposals had contained in them. And I think the track record of you, the individual researcher, really shone through. And one of the things we were especially delighted about reading your track records is the sustained publication record in high impact factor international journals. And if I could give you a piece of advice, I would strongly encourage you to continue to be selective in publishing in the very, very best international journals for future research. I am going to provide some detailed feedback that we came up with from the panel, and I am also going to discuss AI. So I think that's every single one of us have addressed AI, and I think actually that is something that as a whole scientific and engineering and social sciences and business communities, we need to just think about, right? So all of us, or each panel has raised AI as an issue, but it's also an opportunity, and I think that's very, very important. I do want to, before I go any further, to congratulate those of you who have, you will learn at the end of the month whether you've been successful, but whether you've been successful or not, there's some good advice in writing proposals that are received well by reviewers and panel members. So first of all, tips for success. When you write your proposal, think carefully about the project keywords. Okay, it might seem a very obvious thing, but when we, the panel members, are selecting your reviewers to review your proposal, make sure that you make our lives as easy as possible by choosing the most appropriate keywords for your project. Try to avoid keywords that are too broad. If you write down physics or materials, that can go to anyone. Whereas if you are specific in areas, then that's more likely to favor your chances of getting good scores. With your objectives in your proposal, where you can, try and include either targets or measures of success. By the end of this grant, we will have seen a 100% improvement in. Try, if you can produce evidence or targets, then that shows to the reviewer you've thought carefully about your proposal. What is realistic and what is sufficiently ambitious? The research question is very important. Can you make it clear? You should make it clear in your proposal what research questions you are trying to address. And it was interesting reading the reviewers' comments from many proposals that they were critical that the proposal did not identify what the research question that the investigator was actually trying to do. So I strongly encourage you to think carefully about the research question. The Gantt charts and the project management on the whole was a little bit on the variable side. Some of the Gantt charts provide very little information to the reviewers and the panel members. Many of them did not include milestones, deliverables. So think carefully about your milestones and your deliverables. And many, many reviewers highlighted risk. What happens if one of your objectives doesn't work? Do you have a plan B? So think carefully about that. What do you think is the riskiest part of your proposal? And if you think it's a high risk, high reward proposal, be brave and say that in the proposal, but then have a risk mitigation strategy. We've heard about pathways to impact statements. The P2I statements, on the whole, could be very variable. Some of the pathways to impact statements are just a simplified summary of the proposal, and that's not really what they're designed to do. They're designed for you to think about beyond academic outputs, who are the end users who may well benefit from your research. So I strongly encourage you to think about how you write the pathways to impact statements. Funding for and costs in the project. If you ask for a PhD student or a research assistant, usually reviewers will accept that on the whole. If you ask, however, for just a fraction of a PhD student or a fraction of an RA in a 36-month proposal, a reviewer will naturally say, well, who else is going to do the research? So if there are alternative mechanisms to fund the PhD student, put that in your proposal. I've seen proposals where I've looked at it and gone, well, you're only getting 24 months out of 36 months from a student. Who else is going to do the research? Okay? Particularly, this is important for reviewers who are not local to the Hong Kong area. I just want to add one thing about mid-project reports. Those of you who will be successful, it is important that when you write your mid-project report to highlight the successes, the papers associated with that project, and I think that's important. And if there are changes during your project, do let the RGC know this, right? It's very important that if there are changes to PI, if there are changes to objectives, that the RGC are informed on that, because that can have a negative impact on you when the reviewers, the panel members will judge your final report. I have to talk about AI because everybody else has. In my panel, AI can just be a tool. It's a tool to do data analysis. And if that is the case, be clear in your proposal that you are just using AI tools to do, you're not developing anything new on the AI side. Some proposals get confused. They feel they need to generate new artificial intelligence techniques and tools. That's not necessarily the case. If you are just using AI with an appropriate data set, be honest in what you write down. Which begs the question of where you get the data. So be clear on what the source of the training data or the data you're going to use is. And then a couple of final points, those of you particularly in the more materials area, if you are going to develop a technique that's potentially going to have real-world impact, think about scalability. You may have something that works really, really well and really exciting in a laboratory, but when you try and scale it up to the real world, then you realize the costs are prohibitive or just won't scale up. And reviewers in particular can be quite negative if they think the scalability or the links to industry or that next step in your, usually the final objective is not there. And then the final thing I just want to highlight is interdisciplinary research. We saw an increased number of proposals in that interdisciplinary research area. I think that's a good sign. Don't be afraid to do interdisciplinary research, but maybe when you're making the reviewer's life a little easier, make it clear that this is an interdisciplinary research proposal. And my final word of advice is continue to be adventurous. The really exciting science and all of research comes about by taking risks. And I know it's sometimes tempting to just go along a safer path to try and increase your chances of funding, but actually reviewers and panel members will recognize high risk, high reward science and engineering. So I encourage you to think adventurously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Carey. Please remain on stage as we now proceed to the Q&A section.
Hi, I'm Jeff Saunders from Hong Kong U Psychology. So the question for the social sciences, so some of my colleagues, they're under the impression based on saying output that you need to have an applied angle or that applied is being prioritized, but that's not necessarily in the feedback. So that was a question, whether that is a major factor. Do they feel like they need to have an applied component to the proposal to be able to be successful?
So I'm the subpanel chair of education, and of course there must be some components of applied, and I think Zhu Hua, is Zhu Hua still here, who is the subpanel chair of H1 Psychology and Linguistics. We talked about this yesterday, actually. For me, at least in education, you don't even have to have an applied angle to your research. We believe that there's a lot of research in humanities and social sciences that are basic in a way that is theoretically driven. And so I say, as an HSS panel chairperson, that I don't think we prioritize applied research. We know there's a box you have to tick, but that is not something that we take into account.
Great, thank you. And if I could ask one more. Another question I got, with people trying to figure out the budgets, are you in danger of getting rejected because your budget's too high, or will it mostly be evaluated? So there's some tension of, do you want to make sure you don't have it too high, but also be realistic what you spend? Mm-hmm. So is it going to contribute to your success? And if it is important, how do you know what is appropriate, right? Like to ask for if it's going to be consideration in gaining the grant. So thanks.
I can't speak for other panels. In H, we do look at the size of the budget. So I'll give you an example. If you submit a grant in my subpanel and one project itself is going to take up 10% of the entire panel's budget, you are, even if your project is going to be funded, it's not going to get everything you want, okay? I got to be fair because I have to maintain a certain level of ability. I'm Canadian and very socialist, as you could tell. I want everybody to get something. And so I won't say that a large budget will get you rejected per se, because we don't screen proposal just by the budget. It's the project quality. But if your budget is outrageously large in relation to the full panel's budget, then you will not get everything you asked for. So you might as well give a reasonable budget or scale back the research to do it as a GRF level. Remember, GRF is not meant to be at the CRF scale.
Right. Professor Wong?
Hi, I'm happy to add to that as well too. This is one of our biggest concerns because most of the time, I think most proposals have some level of what we call padding, because they kind of anticipate that it might get cut somehow. So I think we want realistic budgets in the sense that we want to fund as many as we could. And at the same time, we are also very concerned that we want to make sure that you have enough resources to actually do the studies that you plan, because it is just as important. So we, the more, I think the better you are in articulating why you need these resources and how you are going to use it, you are really going to help us to make sure that, your project gets funded as well. Of course, that also has to be, based on a very quality, I think the quality of the proposal ultimately is what is going to drive that decision.
Anybody? Yeah, Professor.
Can I say in the physical sciences panel, because of the sort of laboratory nature of the research that's undertaken, ask for what you need in terms of materials, small items of equipment, and so forth. The reviewers who review the proposal, they will identify any issues they think where the budget is unnecessarily large, and that's something then the panel members will look at. But the overriding issue is the quality of the proposal. It's not down to the budget. It's the quality of the research that's proposed.
Yeah, I'll just add to this. A year ago, when I became chairman of RGC, I was actually amazed to find that nowadays we have over 20 schemes for funding in RGC. So what that means is that among the 20-plus schemes, there are different funding levels for projects. So if you are contemplating proposing a huge project, make sure you find the right scheme to submit your proposal to. And then the other thing is, like Professor Wong said, justify what you're proposing. Everything has to be reasonable. Okay, thank you.
My name is Yuhan from CTUCS. So I do research in human-computer interaction. So from the name, you can see that I do engineering in system development, but I also do human subject research, as most of the people do in social science and psychology. And when I was submitting my proposals, the challenging things for me is to select the right scheme, as you just mentioned, because I couldn't find a keywords that really match my area in engineering. So I often select others. And I also tried a similar approach for social science, that I also select others for social science. So I guess my question is for maybe Professor Ding, in terms of how do you see this kind of human-related research in engineering panel, as well as another question for Professor Look, in terms of how you see a computer science person doing human subject research and talk about system development. Thanks.
So this is a type of questions for the interdisciplinary research. So you often have a hard time to decide which panel you have to submit proposal to. I think the My best advice for you is you have to check out which conference journals you can publish. The panel often check your track record. If you are unable to publish in top engineering journal conferences, you have problem.
Excellent question, and I love doing interdisciplinary work. I'm a psychologist by training, but I'm now in education, so I'm kind of all over the place. It depends on the unit of investigation in your research. In a particular proposal, if you're looking at human behavior, then you would send to HSS. If you're focusing on the more engineering side of things, then you send it to the engineering panel. But I can assure you, even if you send it to a panel that the panel chair determines that is not such a right fit, then we will discuss and talk to each other. So that's what happened to a lot of submissions that goes to either H1, the psychology or linguistics, or to education. So we talk to each other and make the best determination, and sometimes we might jointly look for reviewers who can review an interdisciplinary journal project.
And I want to supplement that is the most important part is you have to understand the proposal will be reviewed by the readers and by the external reviewers. So that means you have to convince the readers and external reviewers whether you're going to advance the state of art. Okay, so even you think your proposal has a strong engineering component, however, if you cannot advance the state of art for the engineering community, and then the readers and the external reviewers for this panel will think you just try to come here to steal money from them because they only want to promote their own people, understand? Because they don't want to have psychology people come to the engineering panel to steal money. So you have to convince them. Yeah, I think this is quite important. I think usually I talk to the PI, the principal investigator is, where can you publish? I think this is a very important factor for you to make a decision. If you cannot publish in the top engineering journals and conferences, that means the people there are not going to appreciate your contributions. You have to choose a different panel, okay?
I just want to add one more thing. So our disciplinary panels is for administrative purposes. The database in which we recruit reviewers is interdisciplinary or even transdisciplinary. So I have used HCI as a keyword to find people to review proposal in the H4 panel. So the database is interdisciplinary, so you're safe.
And also another important thing is I found out is the way you define your proposal title is also quite important. You have to understand when people decide whether I should accept invitation to review this proposal or not, often they base on the title. They may not have time at all to read the abstract. Of course, we ask them to read the abstract, they're just too busy. So that means every word you use in your proposal title is very important. So that is going to determine who is going to review your proposal.
Okay, thank you. The gentleman.
Hi.
Up there, yeah.
I'm Levi Checketts. I'm from Hong Kong Baptist University. I am in our Department of Religion, Philosophy, and Ethics. So my question is for Professor Lok. Again, I think we're getting a lot of attention from the questioners. As you can probably imagine for yourself, RPE fits in two topics under H section. So all of our research, all of our proposals have to somehow fit into one of these. And what some of my colleagues and I found last year after the exercise, it sometimes felt like was unclear how to frame both the keywords and the categories so that they would get to the right reviewers. So obviously, humanities and social sciences is a gigantic category containing way too many disciplines. So I wonder if you have some advice for how to make sure that we can get to reviewers who actually know our field, so that, like for example, a couple of years ago, I had the responses came back, the reviews came back, and it was clear from reading them that some of the reviewers were totally not the right people to review the proposal. So is there some advice for how people in fields that are maybe not very well represented in terms of having a lot of topics can get our proposals to the right reviewers? Thank you.
Yes, great question. Is it because we're an education university, so we have a lot of people doing HSS research? Like, it's fine. I'll handle it. So great question. It's very similar to the previous question about keywords. How do you get to the right people? So each of the subpanel in H have some expertise. But as you say, HSS is a very broad. Even within each of the subpanel, we have very distinguished expertise. So in education, for example, we have people working with bigger system, we have people working with machines, we have people working with real people, and actually teachers in particular. So to get to the right reader, I think you meant reader and not reviewer, because that would be the reader's job to find the right reviewer. To get to the right reader, I would highly recommend you in the abstract, say a few things in the abstract that, even though it's just only one page or 400 words, I can't remember, that you could very quickly extrapolate the core meaning, discipline, and approach, right? So in today's world, research is very, very complex. You can study the same problem with very different methodology. So in an abstract, you have to use the real estate very carefully and use it to basically, I always use this joke, like after you write your proposal, write your abstract like Monet. Like it has to have an impressionist element that people know exactly what you're doing without even knowing the detail. So remember Monet when you write your abstract.
Okay. Next question, the gentleman over here.
Thank you. I'm just wondering whether the pathway to impact is necessary for GRF. You only give us like $500,000, you ask us to come with to the world, right? So I don't think the reviewer is going to look at it. I don't think the panel member will look at it for the GRF. But if it's not, so why we have to spend a lot of time to make up a story, particularly for those people who do theory, pure math, right? How their staff going to save the world in a few years, right? So I just wonder we can remove this part for GRF. Thank you.
Well, let me take a crack at it. I don't think we're looking for every researcher to save the world. Okay? But I think in today's environment, people are looking more than having publications coming out from government-funded projects. So we are looking for an indication of how the research will be useful. I think the word was pathway to impact. Is that the case? Yeah. So we just want the researcher to think about, if you are funded to do this research, how will this research be useful to society? Okay? Now, if the work ends up saving the world, so much the better. But there won't be that many worlds to save, right? So I understand your perspective, but that's the best I can address your question. Okay. Next question. Yeah,
well,
yeah,
maybe
please.
I just want to add, right? So another way to think about this is that this would be an opportunity for you to sell what you do to the second reviewer. Because a lot of times, if somebody don't really know what you do, they cannot connect the dots to what you do to some really valuable returns. So this would be really the opportunity, and you don't want to miss that opportunity to sell this has to be real. It cannot be just superficial, we're going to save the world. And also I wanted to say something about the keyword, because that's related to everything, all of the panels. There are 3 ways you can actually get to the keyword. The keyword is really important. As a reader on the panel, when I look for reviewers, I look at your keyword. So your keyword is really, really important. If you don't really know how to come up with a keyword, there are 3 ways. One is you can go through a textbook in your discipline and try to go to the chapters and find the keyword. That's one way to do it. Another way is to find the specialized conference that related to your field, right? So one place would be like the Gordon Conference, right? So they divided this into very small subfield. Look at their titles. Third way would be in your mind, there must be an ideal reviewer, right? So go to their website and to look at what the keyword they use to describe themselves, and that would be a good keyword.
So impact actually is a quite important factor in the engineering panel, because the impact really help you to bridge research with the reality. So this is actually try to answer the question, why should we fund you? So you gave the example about the theory, right? So you have a beautiful theory, then what will be the societal impact for this theory? So, so is there any going to be a payback from the investment from the RGC to even for $500,000? I assume $500,000 is the taxpayer money, right? So even $500,000 is not a lot of money, but it's still taxpayer money. Then why the taxpayer should fund you to do this research? So you cannot just isolate yourself in a professor's office and then sponsor PhD student, publish in research venue. Nobody going to read. Okay, you have to show the societal impacts. So this is actually a very important factor for the engineering panel. So that means when you write a proposal for the engineering panel, we're actually going to seriously rate the pathway to the impacts to see how much you're going to benefit the society at different levels.
People in H panel really read the pathway to impact statement. I'm just going to say that. And there was a time in history where academics are being seen as elitist and separated and ungrounded from the public. And I think the pathway to impact statement is a very important tool to ground academics, to connect back to the society, not in a grandiose way, but in a realistic way. So the work that we do will go back to people, maybe not immediately. So it is an important exercise. The H panel met yesterday. We had a very lengthy discussion about the pathway to impact statement, and we have some recommendations that we will give to the chairman on Saturday to hopefully improve the process so you enjoy writing it and we enjoy reading it.
Thank you. Maybe we can entertain one more question. Okay, the lady up there in a dark shirt.
Thank you. I'm Cici from EdU. So my last year experience is that I have encountered very distinct comments. The three of the reviewers love it very much, and one of them do not like it. So I know it is normal for us to meet the distinct comments from reviewers, especially for conflicting topics. I just want to curiously know how will you see these distinct comments and how will you really handle that, and what is your suggestion to the resubmission on how to addressing that? Thank you. By the way, I'm submitting to Humanities panel.
I need a drink tonight.
You're popular, Gigi.
We often see that issue in the H panel. It is a very more common than you think. So in addition to reviewers, we also have two readers from the panel. And the reader's job, it's more or less like an editor, right? When you submit a paper, you get 2 or 3 reviewers, and sometimes they have very different opinion. And it's the editor's job to moderate and make some decisions. And that's the reader's job to do it. And if you have 3 very good and 1 negative, then the readers will take that into considerations. And sometimes they will make their own executive judgment. And so I don't think you need to worry about that. In my experience in the H panel, I started serving the H4 subpanel since I was an assistant professor, which is a long time ago. And I have seen many instances where the readers actually moderate and basically back up the PI in the study because of other positive comment instead of just focusing on the negative one.
Professor Carey will add to it, and then Professor Wong.
And can I say in the physical sciences panel, certainly the two panel members do have the ability to discard a particularly negative review if the review is completely out of line with the comments made by the other reviewers, or if the review itself is not particularly professional, or the score given is not tied into the comments that are made. So you all have to understand there's extra level of protection and support for you as individual investigators, that the panel members will look independently, come to their own conclusions, and then when necessary, we do talk amongst ourselves to say, actually, we're going to discount a particular reviewer, and we say that publicly in the panel.
Thank you. Professor Wong.
Yes, all the opinions are true, but I think the readers often would actually exercise their independent judgment in terms of, how to actually review these kind of comments. And it is really also important that sometimes we could take the exact opposite, because if the positive reviews actually doesn't actually say much that is diagnostic about the proposal, we would actually also, and it really comes down, it's less about the ratings as in terms of what is being said and how is that relevant to the proposal at hand. So, but rest assured, we actually take those comments very seriously, and we exercise judgment when we look at these comments. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to add very briefly. From the AM panel, most of the panel members would read your proposal independently without seeing the reviews. So they would give the score and then read the reviews. I think this, most of the panel members are really responsible. They take this job very seriously. So this really serves as another layer of a protection to you.
With that, I'm afraid we have run out of time. So let me thank you all for coming. Let me thank EDU Hong Kong again for hosting us. Thank you all the members on stage. And thank you the RGC and UGC staff from the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you for everyone for attending the RGC Forum today. We hope you found the forum to be a fruitful exchange of ideas.